Welcome to Good Games Spawn Point, the show for younger gamers by gamers. I'm Hex.
And I'm Bajo.
And I am D.A.R.R.E.N.
And this week we're all about gardening.
Really?
Yeah, worms. Not the garden worms, the video game ones. Much better.
And one of the best racers gets its next outing, Forza Motorsport 4.
Plus, we'll meet an artist who makes the characters and landscapes in video games and find out how he got his awesome job.
Did you know that there are hundreds and thousands of species of worms?
Oh, I did know that actually, Darren.
And that they vary in size from microscopic to well over 6 meters for the African giant earthworm.
Whoa.
Worms in your guts can even steal your food. In Victorian times, some people would eat tapeworms on purpose to keep themselves thin.
Darren!
Of course,
Darren, no more worms talk. It's too gross. Can we please talk about the video game worms now?
Oh, affirmative.
Right. Well, developer Team 17 have been making worms games since the 90s, and for the most part, they've been pretty fun, even though the formula has stayed pretty much the same.
Yeah, a few of them have been made into 3D, and now 2 of them have been combined to form Worms Ultimate Mayhem. Darren, could you tell us Spawnings a little bit about how Worms works?
Affirmative. The objective is to take it in turns to obliterate your opposition's worms with assorted weaponry. Falling in water means instant death, and if you get hurt your turn, you have to miss it. There are a variety of weapons in the game, with most relying on trajectory and power to hit your targets.
Thank you, Darren. You know, I've always struggled with the Worms games when they're in 3D because there's just so many more angles to shoot from. And I struggled with this one too because that camera pivots on your worm and the camera isn't really close enough to the worm and you just can't see everything. So trying to aim a rocket launcher or a grenade is really tough in that view. But dynamite and that sort of thing, that's okay because you just walk along and then plot it next to an enemy and run away.
Yes, to fire most weapons, you're going to have to go into the first-person view. You can't move in this perspective, which is a shame because moving around in third person is fiddly and often your worm doesn't go where you want it to. More than once I backflipped into the water.
Me too.
Me 3.
There's a lot of timing involved in this game. You'll need to time your jump and double jump just perfectly, but there's also a time limit, which makes things quite intense. Even in the first-person view though, Bajo, I found it hard judging power. In the 2D worm games, you can do a bit of trial and error and really work at your timing, but here I found it was a bit random.
I was unimpressed with the artificial intelligence. Most games start off easy and then get more challenging, but the computer-controlled worms were often terrible at attacking, and they never seemed to improve as you progressed.
Maybe next time.
There is a decent variety of weapons, though. All the classics are there. Baseball bats, which are used for knocking people into the water, along with the fire punch. There's also dynamite, shotguns, bazookas, and my favourite, the exploding sheep. Big, bad. You can also customise your own worm's voices and clothes, and you can even build your own special weapon, and that's all about balancing worm damage with destruction.
On the single-player side of things, the Worms 3D campaign from the 2003 game is the most fun and has a good variety of levels, and you can choose to play any chapter you like. But there is a story mode too, which starts off by letting you blow up a diner, for which some reason has been stacked with TNT. I didn't last long in the story mode, guys.
Oh, nuts.
I can see how they've tried to make it fun by giving you different objectives like collecting tools or teaching you about all the different gadgets like the parachute, but the pace of it all is really slow.
Yeah, multiplayer is still the most fun, and there are a few different modes, but I definitely recommend Deathmatch. There's just something about playing against a human opponent that really brings this game to life. Although I found once there was a stationary machine gun into the mix, it was too powerful and it would kill you before you even got a chance to move.
Overpowered?
Yeah, definitely, Darren. When one weapon has too much power in a game, it can totally ruin the fun.
Like my super mega lasers.
What's a super mega laser?
Oh, it's like my normal laser, but it shoots rainbows.
Oh, that sounds awesome. Can we see it?
Negative. It's only for special occasions.
Oh. Well, you know what? Call me old school, but I like the 2D versions of Worms much better. I know this is a compilation of old games, but that destruction was just so lackluster, so I'm gonna give it 4 out of 10 rubber chickens.
Yeah, it's not an expensive game, and while I think the 3D imagining would have been great for its time, it all just feels it's a bit too clumsy for me now, so I'm giving it 4 as well.
All right, well, I'm gonna go read the news. Huh.
Go on, Darren, show us your rainbow laser.
Oh, all right.
It's quite relaxing.
Always I want to be with you and make believe with you and live in harmony, harmony, always.
Bajo here with the news from a... Hang on a second. What's that sound? Hi, can I talk to Darren? Hi, Darren. Did you just fire your super awesome mega laser without me? Darren, you know I really wanted to see that. I was excited as... Oh, like... You can do that? He's gonna put it through the phone. Okay. All right. Go. Whoa! Oh, that's amazing. Thanks, Darren. Okay, you can stop now. You can stop now, Darren. I need to read the news, Darren. I know what. And now to the news. The Digital Australia Report for 2012 has been released. The report looks at the gaming habits of Australians. It found that over 90% of households now have a gaming device, and that almost 1 in 5 games sold is family, making them the most popular gaming genre of all. Over 90% of young Australians call themselves gamers, and so do almost all of their parents. 88% of grown-ups said they like to play games with their children.
Kids between the ages of 6 and 15, they're the serious gamers.
Japanese researchers have developed a robot which is capable of learning from experiences and working out how to perform tasks that it was never programmed to do. By using advanced algorithms, the robot is able to piece together various bits of information to determine how to complete a task, such as pouring a glass of water. If the robot gets stuck, it will just ask for help or browse the internet to find out the solution for itself. Excuse me for a moment. Hello, bud. Hi, Darren. No, we're not replacing you, Darren. No, we're not going to. That robot's nowhere near as good as you.
Now, we have plenty of evidence that many of you spawnlings are brilliant at drawing.
Oh, those Sonic cards were amazing.
Weren't they? But how many of you have actually thought about turning those skills into a job in the video games industry?
Well, we paid a visit to Adam, who's done just that.
I got into gaming when I was a kid. I think my first memories of playing games was like Pong and Space Invaders, that kind of thing. Eventually onto the consoles. I first started considering getting into the games industry probably about a decade ago. At the time I was working as a graphic designer and illustrator and was looking for new avenues, different ways to use my craft. I studied fine art and graphic design at TAFE. I then went on to look for private training in 3D, and that gave me enough knowledge of the software to then build a show reel, which you use a show reel to apply for positions in this industry. In terms of working in mediums, my favourite is just sitting down with a pencil and paper. I do like digital painting, but yeah, just sitting down with a pencil and paper is, makes me quite happy. There's sort of the artistic side and a business side. So firstly, with the art side, you need to have a very thorough understanding of art principles. So that's, graphic design, illustration, fine art, photography, cinematography, that kind of thing. And then be able to have the software knowledge as well. So understand how all the packages work, what the limitations are, what the benefits are of each package. And then couple that with the business knowledge of being able to meet schedules and plan the deadline for these quite large projects. A typical day for me isn't very typical. It changes all the time, from planning out projects, working with the designers, working with the programmers, nutting out all sorts of problems that we're having with the game, or coming up with new solutions for things, or dynamic ways of doing things. Outside of games, I'm a massive comic book nerd. I have a pretty huge collection of comic books, which I've been collecting since I was a kid. So yeah, any sort of book, whether it's superheroes through to crime, drama, whatever, I'll try and get my hands on it. At lunchtime, we have the games room set up so that the guys can just play games, de-stress a little bit. We play everything from Street Fighter to FIFA, all sorts of sporting games, anything that's kind of current. To pursue a career with art, I would say learn to draw anything. and don't just draw what your favourite thing is. So that includes buildings and vehicles and that kind of thing. And from various angles, you need to be able to have flexibility in what you can draw and how you can draw it. So I just say for people watching at home, get lots of practice, draw lots of different things. Even if it's just sitting in front of a movie and pausing a frame every now and then to sketch an idea down and try and fill up as many sketchbooks as you possibly can. Definitely keep your art style broad, but if you have one area that you're specifically strong in, then, you know, if you end up on a project like that, then you're really going to shine. If working in games is your passion and it's something that you really want to do, then just be tenacious and never give up and just keep on trying to improve your artwork. And if it doesn't succeed, just keep on working at it. And eventually, through pure passion, you will find a job.
Hey Hex, have you ever thought about getting a job in the games industry?
I already have a job in the games industry. I review video games. So do you.
Oh yeah, but I mean, we're more like barnacles on the whale of the games industry. Like the industry's the whale, we're barnacles just riding along. You know, we're not actually making games.
I suppose it's quite a nice analogy. I think we should get on with the questions though. So straight on to this one from Fiona in Noobsville, Queensland.
And sometimes the barnacle does poops, and that's when we get the bad games.
Do barnacles poop?
I mean the whales.
The whales poop. Hi guys, I sent you a letter about Fruit Ninja. Do I need Xbox Live to have Fruit Ninja? And what are some good games for girls on the Xbox 360? Well, Fiona, if you want Fruit Ninja on Xbox, then yes, you do need Xbox Live as it's a downloadable arcade game, so you won't find it in any stores on disc.
And don't forget, you'll also need the Kinect to play the Xbox version. But if you don't have a Kinect and Xbox Live, then it's also available on iOS and Android devices.
As for good games for girls, well, personally I tend not to think about a game being a boy's game or a girl's game. I mean, if it's a good game, and it's a good game, it doesn't matter if you're a boy or a girl. So there aren't really many games that are made just for girls.
Although there are some games which are, you know, focused more at girls, such as Barbie Island Princess, or Style Boutique, which is all about changing shoes, and it's not really my kind of thing. Actually, this isn't bad. Look at my awesome shoes.
Right, well, you might also want to check out something like The Sims 3, which is a great game, and that one's popular with boys and girls. But anyway, speaking of Sims 3, we have this one from Milo in Gamevale, New South Wales.
Uh-oh. Shoe
happened?
boss. Finding a shoe boss.
There's no shoe boss
Yeah, there
in
is.
Style Boutique. Show
So
me.
is no. I was gone. Got him. And I got
Such a
20,000 shoes,
liar.
and I'm going to spend them. I'm going to trade them in for hats. Okay, I've asked this question a billion times and no response. So here goes. For the billionth and one time, is the Wii version of The Sims 3 better than the PC version? Well, the fact is that the Wii is just not as powerful as the other current gen consoles, or most PCs. Consequently, the game does not look as good. Also, some of the online features The Sims 3 has on the PC and other consoles are missing on the Wii version. So we'd have to say no, it's not better than the PC version.
We should note, though, that the PC version is rated M while the console versions are rated PG, but you should still check with a grown-up before getting it. Moving on to this one now from Noob Cake in Bajo Rocks, So Does Hex, New South Wales.
I've been there.
Really?
I like that town. Well, I like half of that town. The
Sounds
first
like a
half,
great town.
yeah, the first half it's awesome. Second half, other side of the tracks, not so good. Hello GGSP, I would love to know if there are any good super duper 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 hard puzzles games. You see, I'm a big fan of them. I already have Portal 2 and Machinarium, which are both great games, but I would love to know more. Thanks. P.S. Bajo rules, Hex is awesome, P.S.S. D.A.R.R.E.N is just a weirdo. He's so weird. Well, Noob Cake, there are plenty of brain-hurting games out there. One of my favorites is The Misadventures of PB Winterbottom. You have to use lots of time bending and all kinds of crazy things to solve the puzzles. They can be pretty tricky.
It's also well worth checking out two of our all-time favourite games, World of Goo and Braid. I mean, they're just brilliant.
But if you're up for a bit of a retro game experience, you might want to check out the Myst series. They're considered absolute classics and are really, really hard, but brilliant and so hard. And, Myst, so full of mist.
Right, well, moving on to this one from Leela in Perth, Western Australia. Are there any cute animal games out in store? Well, Leela, there are some pretty cute animal games around. If you've got a Kinect, then the kitties in Kinectimals are very cute.
Also, the Nintendogs games have lots of cute dogs, and Nintendogs Plus Cats for 3DS has, you guessed it, cats.
And there's iPet on the PlayStation, which lets you play with this pet thing. Bajo, what is that?
Some sort of generic cute animal, of course, Hex.
Oh, well, I think we've got time for just one more this week. Let's go to this one from Daniel in Terry Hills.
Terry lives there.
I used to keep my horse in Terry Hills.
Yeah?
Yeah.
What's your horse's name?
I've had 3 horses.
3 horses?
I had Red,
Yeah.
I had Flash,
Yeah.
and I had Max.
Did you go riding on the horses?
Of course.
Did you feed the horses?
Yes.
Yeah, did they talk to you?
Only like with neighs and snorts and grunts and stuff.
Yeah, that's how horses talk.
Okay, well, let's read the question.
Yes. Hey, Bajo and Hex. Have you heard of a game called King Arthur's Gold? I hear it's good, but I don't know whether to give it a try unless you tell me it's worth it. Please.
Well,
Well, what?
well, we have been playing King Arthur's Gold. Let's tell Daniel what we think.
I don't know, Hex.
You don't know what you think?
No, I know what I think. I just don't know if we can do a review on this table. It doesn't feel really review-worthy. And also, I really like my review chair. It's nice and comfy. I've worked a good groove into it. I feel like I can really think in that chair.
Yeah, you're right. Well, let's get back to the studio then and we can answer this question.
That's an excellent idea. To the studio! Help! Hello! Ah, comfy review chair. How I've missed you. All right, now, Daniel, here are our thoughts on King Arthur's Gold.
Now, it does look a lot like Terraria, but it's actually quite different because it focuses on player versus player action. The object of each round is to breach the enemy castle and secure a victory.
King Arthur's Gold, or CAG, was created by the maker of Soldat, a fun 2D shooting game that was released around 10 years ago but is still played today. The game has a similar feel. This game is still in alpha, which means it's the first playable version and not the final product. Players should expect lots of bugs. Much of the game is still being worked on and tweaked.
King Arthur's Gold has 3 classes, a knight, a builder, and an archer. You can change these classes at outposts and also at the castle where you respawn. Builders are for making traps and building up other defences. They're also quite handy for tunnelling to the enemy base. They can make catapults too, which can launch boulders and other players. Although, guys, I found they just dig so slowly.
Yeah, don't you know there's a war on? Dig faster. The knight is your offensive unit. He has a grenade which does pretty intense damage. You can block with a shield and you have a light and heavy attack. The heavy attack has to be timed perfectly, so it's really tricky to land.
Yeah, I found that hard too.
Timed attacks work better for the archer units, who can sit back and pick off enemies from a distance. Sitting in a castle, letting my arrows fly, it was like I had my own medieval laser, charging my longbow.
There are some nice strategies you can employ to keep the enemy at bay, but it all gets a bit messy online. A large part of this is because there aren't any Aussie servers for us to play on. So we had really high pings, which puts us at a massive disadvantage. I mean, sometimes it took 4 seconds for our actions to register on the server, and you just can't play PvP like that.
Yeah, and it's kind of understandable when a game is in its early stages like this, but it means we can't really recommend it, but it is definitely one to watch. Also, it's not worth paying for the premium version just yet, unless you want to support the developer, because some of those modes, I couldn't even find them, so perhaps they're not even implemented yet. I don't know, the website wasn't very clear on that one.
Oh, one thing I did love though was those emoticons. You just press the numbers on your keyboard and you'll instantly communicate a little face to the other players or opposition without having to type anything.
Yeah, I thought they were really good, although I struggled with the mouse control because your camera view is locked to the mouse. It's not independent of your character moving around. And, that was really tough to get used to.
I struggled with basic jumping. It's great that you can wall slide to avoid a painful death by hugging the wall, but the jumping didn't feel responsive enough and quite often I'd just fall, especially in the tutorial, which is brutal.
I love the calm before the storm though, before the battle even begins, where everyone's setting up all these complex defenses and traps and everyone is so good at it. I felt a bit like a noob. Don't laser me, Darren. Stop the face.
When you're learning a game, Bajo, noobism is tolerable.
Well, there was this one point where everyone was on this bridge, they're building this big bridge to the enemy's base, and I accidentally catapulted it, and the bridge crumbled, and everybody fell to their death, and I just quit the game quickly. I panicked. I didn't want them to yell at me.
Oh no. Well, summing up, it doesn't really seem fair to score this game so early in its development, but the developers seem keen to keep adding to it, so we may revisit it down the track.
Yes, it does still need work, but as a work in progress, it may be interesting for the Spawnlings to check out, and it is free. Speaking of work in progresses, do you remember a little game called Little Space Heroes?
I sure do.
Affirmative.
Well, now the game is in beta, which means the developers have released the game, it's able to be played, and they want your feedback on what works.
And what doesn't?
Exactly. And a quick search online will find it.
But now, it's time to buckle up for some Forza 4. Seatbelts! 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 Okay. Forza has been around since the original Xbox, and it's Microsoft's direct answer to Sony's mammoth Gran Turismo series. The fourth Forza is here, but is it the best one yet?
Both Forza and Gran Turismo are considered to be driving simulators, which use accurate algorithms and data to create the most lifelike virtual racing possible.
And speaking of lifelike, just look at it. I mean, it's one of the prettiest games we've ever seen. It almost looks real at times.
And for the Spawnlings out there who want to learn a bit more about the cars, there's a new Auto Vista mode. It's a virtual showroom with 20 odd cars for you to gawk at and explore, each with a description from Top Gear's Jeremy Clarkson.
You have some idea of the forces of nature at work here.
You can play Auto Vista entirely with Kinect, but to be honest, I didn't really like doing this much because you end up fighting with the Kinect a bit and moving around when you really want to just stay still. So I just stuck with the controller because I think it works better.
There are a few other Kinect additions too. There's a mode where you steer the car just with your hands while it brakes and accelerates for you. It's clearly for the more casual players out there, but it's nice that that's catered for. There's also a new head tracking mode which tracks it based on turning and moving your head slightly. It's a nice idea, but I found it made me pretty sick and I turned it off pretty quick. Plus, it kept coming up with an error telling me to reconnect my head.
You'd forget it if it wasn't screwed on.
But the best Kinect feature is definitely voice command. If you're just about to start a race but you want to apply some upgrades, then there's no more going back through menus like some button-pressing chump. You just say,
Xbox, upgrade.
and you're sent straight to the upgrades menu. Then, once you're done, say,
Xbox, next race.
and then you're back to where you were. It's pretty cool.
And when it comes to racing, this is the most realistic Forza game yet. By reworking the tyre simulation completely, they've created vast improvements in car handling. But Spawnlings new to driving simulators shouldn't feel daunted by Forza, as you're free to choose how much of a simulator you want the game to be through turning assists on or off.
It's great there's so many options, Darren. I like to drive with all the assists off, except for the braking line, because I always have trouble trying to get the right line around those braking corners. I also always go for automatic, because those gear changes are tough. But it's important to spend time with all of these assists and find the right difficulty for you. Also, there's a rewind feature, and it's worth leaving that on, because if you stuff up, rewind time.
Sometimes simulators can be quite dull, but here the racing is always exciting and it controls so well. And that rumble of the controller just really lets you know the limit of each car.
I was pleased by the new World Tour mode, which zooms around the globe for each event. And every event lets you choose from a few possible races that change depending on which car you're in. It means if you find a few cars that you love, you can just stick with those all the way through the career. Or you can try a different car each race, it's up to you.
And there's different kinds of events other than just racing, like autocross and Top Gear bowling, and there's hundreds of cars with a good selection of tracks with even more to come in DLC. But the best new addition is definitely the Rivals mode, an offline multiplayer mode where you face off against other players' ghosts and try to beat their times.
Yes, you're able to choose anyone from the leaderboard to be your rival, and the higher up the board you go, the bigger the bounty. It's tricky to guess how far up the board you can get, and there's no harm in going after number one, because even if you don't beat them, you just don't get the bounty, but you still get XP and credits, and your time still gets posted on the board.
You have to race a clean lap if you want to be competitive. If you come off the track, use a rewind, or hit something, your lap will be labelled dirty. And even if your dirty lap is the fastest lap in the world, the slowest clean lap will still be counted above it. It really forces you to race skillfully.
There's also online car clubs now, which are really just clans, but you can share any of your cars with anyone in your club, so it's a great way to get access to cars that you don't actually have. And for any spawnlings wishing to join Team Good Game, it's tag GGAU.
But we should wrap this up. There's heaps we haven't talked about, such as the online auction house and how you can upgrade your car for ages and paint and spend ages drawing on your car if you really want to. In the end, it would have been nice to have some weather effects or maybe some nighttime racing, but this is still one of the greatest racing games I've ever played, so I'm giving it 9.5 out of 10 rubber chickens.
It's a massive game too, isn't it? I mean, you could be playing it for hours and still find new stuff to play. And it really caters to people of all ages and skill levels. So even if you're not the biggest petrol head, it's hard not to get caught up in all that passion for cars and racing. So I'm giving it 9.
Well, that's all the time we have for this week, but we shall return next week with more gaming goodness.
We'll be getting our groove on with Just Dance 3.
And getting a move on with F1 2012.
Nice rhyming skills, Darren.
Plus all of our shenanigans from the recent gaming expo held on the Gold Coast, where we got to meet so many spawnlings.
Good game, Spawn Boy!
Well, until then, spawnlings, may all your games be good ones. Bajo out.
Hex out.
Darren out.
Can you dance, Darren?
Affirmative.
Show me your moves.
Check this out. This is the Charleston.
He can moonwalk too, remember?
Oh, yes. This is my moonwalk.
It looks just like your Charleston.
There's subtle differences you wouldn't understand.
Oh, okay.